We live by these basic principles as a SEAL in everything we do. Anything they're going to endeavor and what they're going to do is you hit it with three things. And the triangles: surprise, speed, and violence of action. And interpret that as initiative, speed, and overwhelming action. So those three principles you put into anything you want to accomplish, immerse yourself in it and get after it. The portrayal of a Navy SEAL is that we're just a bunch of cowboys. You know, we throw our gear on,
and you run
take off and do some dangerous mission without planning. We plan, prepare, and rehearse to like no one can imagine. Every single part of every mission has a contingency plan, a what if, what to do. And so nothing's unscripted. And, you know, I love people when they go, well, you know, the first contact with the enemy, all the plans go to crap. You're like, well, that's not true, because we have a plan for those things. Because when you're cold, wet, tired, scared, and it's dark and something goes wrong, you don't want to rely on making it up.
All right, hello and welcome back to the Better Human Podcast, a podcast about making humans better humans and demystifying the world of relationships, communication, entrepreneurship for your better life. Today we are joined by the one and only, the amazing Ed Hiner, ex-Navy SEAL, author of the best-selling author, First, Fast, Fearless, How to Lead Like a Navy SEAL, and host of Sealpreneurship podcast. He also does a tremendous work, a lot of work with youth, underprivileged kids, juvenile systems around teaching them how to be leaders, and share some of his insights, which we're going to talk about. But just so you know who this dude is, in his 20-year career as a Navy SEAL, Mr. Hiner saw 9 major deployments and commanded hundreds of strategic combat missions across the globe. He earned 2 Bronze Stars with the V of Valor and Combat Leadership. Ed has led and trained one of the most elite organizations in the world, the Navy SEALs teams, and currently working with companies to manage fear and manufacture motivation within all levels of the organization. Let's start the conversation by jumping right into the impact session. Ed, it is amazing to have you here. I am so excited to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me. Let me correct you on your opening. You said former Navy SEAL. Always a Navy. I'm retired. Always a SEAL.
Retired Navy SEAL. And you know what? I'll begin this with saying, man, thank you so much for your service, right? You and everyone else.
Thank you.
So listen, let me ask you, let's start with something sort of broad and generic just to get the audience going. Tell me a little something about yourself. Give us a little overview of who you are and, you know, above and beyond the intro that I just gave you, you know, what could the audience know about you?
Well, this will lead into some of the things I'm doing right now, but I kind of grew up a poor kid out in a small Blue Ridge mountain town in Virginia, right? And difficult, broken home. I grew up loving sports. That was my savior, if you will. Ended up getting a Division I baseball scholarship. And that kind of projected my life forward in ways that I don't even know where I'd be. And one of the neat little things I'm kind of proud of, it's not really well known, I don't really put this in my bios and stuff, but one of the things in 2016, I was inducted into the High School Hall of Fame. So
Wow.
I was a keynote speaker for my high school for baseball. Yeah.
Very cool. So let me ask you, I mean, do you think your sports had a massive impact in regard to your success as a leader, as a SEAL, as someone that does what they do today?
100%. Without sports, I don't know, because, you know, you don't have parents around at a young age. By the time I was 13, I didn't have a parent around. I was with my grandmother.
Right.
And life's different for a kid like that. And I fell into baseball. I made varsity baseball as a freshman in high school, which is unheard of. And that put me on the trajectory to go to where I was at. I mean, you know, sports teaches discipline. It teaches how to get along, teamwork, or team ability, as I like to call it.
Right,
so,
right. You know,
sports was a big thing for me.
Amazing. I was chatting this earlier. I was chatting with my mother the other day, and I've got a 4-year-old at home, 4 and a 6-year-old, but we're talking about my 4-year-old. And she said, you know, one of the most important things you can do with him specifically, because he's just like you, Greg, that's what she said, is put him in team sports, because his ability to learn to collaborate, communicate, share, interact with people, develop that sort of, you know, ability to you know, operate above and beyond self is going to come from team sports. And I couldn't agree more. And if you look at like a lot of people that, you know, have corporate success, in a lot of cases, you see that commonality of that sort of team sports background, right? Whether they went pro or whether they were just active in it. Very cool. So I really want to talk to you about this program, the work you're doing with the youth and stuff. Give us a little overview of the leadership training that you're doing with youth.
Well, we call it Sealpreneurship, SEAL and then entrepreneur, a mixture of words. It's really a PhD in me. is what it comes out to be.
Cool.
And that's what we give them at the end of the course. It's for the courts and juvenile school system here in San Diego. And right now I'm working with San Pasqual Academy, some inner city academies, some youth sports, and we do 2 summer camps or major camps per year for each. And it's training the kids in their mind, because these kids are all in the foster youth system. They all live on campus at this high school.
Right.
And as you know, they've probably suffered trauma. Their life's been very difficult. So it is really all above the neck training.
Mm-hmm.
And we teach them off the principles of our next book. It's called Guts, Greatness Under Tremendous Stress. Teach them how to have mental toughness. What is this? Everybody's like, well, you need discipline to be successful. Well, what is it? How do I get some of that? Right? We teach them the how to. And we teach it in a manner, or I teach it in a manner as what I call a blue collar scholar, right? Practical, pragmatic, how to get it actually done. So yeah, it's been very successful so far. I mean, it's we're now working with the whole district. We had a contract with the districts. It's going well.
I love the name Guts, by the way. Super cool. Super cool. What a great acronym. So just walk me through that. Walk us through for the audience, so going through that type of mental toughness, what are the things that you're teaching, and how do you teach them?
Well, it's a 2-way conversation. We don't lecture. We use physicality. We use the body. We use the mind. We use all parts of it. But we start off and teach them how to deal with fear, because a lot of these kids are dealing with fear, which in COVID, it's, for everyone, it's even the unknowns out there. People are stressed out. How to deal with fear. What does it do physically to you? How do you combat fears? How do you form language discipline? How do you form visualization discipline? And how do you actually change your state of mind and stay focused in a moment? We teach a lot of just basic skills that you can read about stuff, but we make them do it, because it's really in the doing. And life's, it's great to have knowledge in your brain, but if you don't do it, it's no good to you.
Yeah, it's the practice, right?
Practice, you got to do.
Yeah, if you think about meditation, breathing, yoga, I use this analogy all the time.
Meditation's part of it.
Right, you practice it. So you were talking about fears and anxiety, and yes, this isn't just for youth and kids in these programs, but we are living in a world of uncertainty. We are living in a world of amped up anxiety. People are jacked up. We are afraid. People are afraid to hug their relatives, to get together with their friends, to shake someone's hand. What are some important things that I think, maybe from the stuff that you teach, but what lessons can we take as adults to start practicing now?
Well, one is control your focus.
Yeah.
Which focus with your language, with your visualization. Most people right now with this COVID thing are awfulizing, is what I would call it, right? You're ruminating to the worst case scenario possible. I'm going to get COVID. My family's going to die. So that they instantly go to that. And to bring that focus back with your language and with your thought process is very important, because we learn that skill in combat. I know it sounds crazy, but meditation makes a better SEAL. Because if you're overseas, say for 6 or 8 months, and you're conducting 1 to 4 missions a night, which we were doing at times,
right?
If you can't stay in the moment, you can't function, right? Because when you get stressed out and fearful, your actual executive part of your brain, the thinking part of your brain shuts down. So if the more fear you have, the more fear you should have, because you're going to get hurt.
Right.
So,
right.
And we teach these, and people can look at this now and they feel especially if you're watching the news or reading the same awful, especially in America here with all the politics, people are in a state of mind of severe agitation all the time. Yeah. And you can control that. And we teach the kids, like I said, it's a blue collar scholar type point of view, but about the subconscious mind, how to, you get what you feed it. Right? If you look at if you study yellow Corvettes online all day for 3-4 days straight, when you go outside, that's what you see. Right. Because your subconscious mind brings it to you. It says it's important. If you focus on fear in your life full of fear, then you're going to see the world as a scary place. Right. And everything about it's scary. So, people are doing that awfulizing, and I say just control your focus, stay in the moment, put positive things in your life, and
And what I hear you saying is this isn't like an automatic thing, which is just think positive and everything goes. This is practice in working these exercises in the moment, like catching yourself being like, there's my thought again. Let me change my thought, because, and we know this in neuroscience, which is you could change the neurological connections and pathways, right? So an old dog can learn new tricks. But interesting, is it fair, like in being a SEAL, are you able to shut that fear part of your brain off? In other words, you could turn the amygdala off, or is it more about counterbalancing it with thought?
Well, there's a lot of different levels to that, but your thoughts obviously matter greatly. Visualization training, we teach kids how to do visualization training with self-talk, breathing, getting the body and the mind in the right state of mind. It's also preparation. Look, I mean, we don't, one of the pet peeves I have with the portrayal of a Navy SEAL is that we're just a bunch of cowboys. You know, we throw our gear on
and you run
take off and do some dangerous mission without planning. We plan, prepare, and rehearse to like no one can imagine. Every single part of every mission has a contingency plan, a what if, what to do. And so nothing's unscripted. And, I love people when they go, well, the first contact with the enemy, all the plans go to crap. You're like, well, nope, that's not true.
Actually
we have a plan for those things. Because when you're cold, wet, tired, scared, and it's dark and something goes wrong, you don't want to rely on making it up.
Right.
You want to already have, boom, this is in place, A, B, C, boom, 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 you start reacting. So by preparation, and close is what I call to the X preparation. And what the X is in combat is X is you contact with the enemy. Okay. Now we plan for that moment. We train for that moment as close as we can. We get in our training, we shoot live rounds in every part of our training, close proximity to each other. We're throwing live explosives to get that simulation. So when we show up in combat, it's not your first rodeo. You've already had rehearsals, not only in your visual training, which is like a rehearsal anyway, right? It's like a repetition, but you also have the physical rehearsals.
So is it desensitizing ourselves to these because we're putting ourselves through such exposure, or is it, we've planned and we've rehearsed so much that we know what to expect, so our ability to predict becomes more of the driver in this moment? Do you know what I mean by that?
I do. I think it's a combination of it. That in your mind's eye, you've already seen that situation before. Our training is actually harder than any combat mission we've been on.
Right.
I mean, we train to way past failure, not to make you a failure, but way past failure so you can grow from that. And then, you learn where that line is. So you're humbled, which is a critical part about being a SEAL, is being humble. Arrogance will kill you. But we train to it. So we've seen it, we prepared for it, we have a plan for it, we feel confident in our plan. And we train like Superman, but we're not Superman. That's kind of the way we see it.
It's amazing. I have a friend/client. I have quoted her in I think the last 3 or 4 podcasts, and I don't know why, but I'm gonna do it again, right? And she says this all the time. It's not hers; it's what was shared with her. But there's a line that says, "Plan your work and work your plan." Right? Yep. And that's what you've just described, which is at the end of the day, it is about the training, it is about the development of these skill sets, it is about mindset, it is about using these things to practice to keep these muscles and neurological connections firing, but it is also about making sure that you've planned all that stuff. I mean, if you look at any sports team, it's the same thing. If you look at a fighter will study the other fighter's previous fights, right? They'll try to maybe spar and train with someone that is as close to their upcoming opponents as possible, so they have that capacity. So amazing. So let me ask you this question, because this is kind of where we get into the first section. So knowing all of this, you're a young guy early in your career, you're on your way to being a Navy SEAL. What are some of the mistakes you made early in your career that you wish you didn't, or that you now know today that you wish you knew back then?
Well, I wish, I think we all could benefit from leadership training earlier on, right? In the SEAL teams or in the military in general, in the American military, you're always tossed in, especially as a junior officer, you're tossed in jobs above your head, to be honest with you. And you learn on the job training and, you have a lot of failures, which obviously that's a time for growth, because we always, we have that philosophy to push every one of our leaders, all our SEALs to failure. That doesn't make them failures, but we want them to see them fail so they can learn from it. Right. And I wish I'd had a little bit more leadership training back in those times, kind of, so I wouldn't have had all the struggles and the headaches.
Right.
But hey, that makes the ride worth riding.
Right, which comes back to the failure. I mean, let me ask you this: we could ask the general question, which is, can you learn without failing? And I think in some capacity, yes. But we might broaden that to how important is failing as part of the lesson of learning?
Well, failing the right way is I would say it's critical for us. Our organization is obsessed, and we teach kids this, is with after action reviews. Okay. No matter what you do, big or small, there's always a review, and it's not finger pointing. It's not criticizing. It's, hey, move your arm this way, do this. Like we have a thing, say a 50,000 square foot building.
Right.
It's padded so we can have shoot inside, right? Every kill house run is what we call it. We come outside, we debrief either by cameras. It's like, look, see where you got yourself here. You couldn't cut this angle. He could have shot you from here. So I think it's that failing and learning in an environment that sets that tone. It's not, a lot of businesses I would work with, that they would wait to the end of the year to tell their employees, on their performance review, what they did wrong. It's like, well,
right.
Why don't you try doing that at the end of the day,
right,
or the end of the week,
right?
And say, here's what you can do to get that A that you want. So
right. We call it failing forward in some capacity.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And I was about to say, how great would it be if corporate took on this capacity from a leadership standpoint, which is, as you said, not that annual performance review, which is a check the box exercise, but hey, let's just talk about what that meeting happened. How do you think it went? Listen, here's what, and giving that real time feedback. I think in the world of corporate, in some regards, we bastardize or corporatize this stuff, right? Which is, you strip the essence of leadership out of the relationship because it becomes a check the box or a square type of approach to situations. And I love what you just said, which is at the end of the day, and I'll just paraphrase, which is leadership is more about how you're showing up in the moment versus, in some cases, what you know or what you do later.
That's right. It's not something you do to people, you do it with them.
Right. That's management, so supervision. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into some more with Ed. Okay, just before we jump into the next segment, we're going to take a quick little audio break, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, the Better Human Program. The Better Human Program is a 10-week program that equips you with the tools to achieve success in every interaction with other humans. Learn assertiveness, effective communication, interpersonal skills, and take control of your life with the Better Human Program. Check out the link below for all the description information. All right, welcome back. We just had a great kickoff with Mr. Ed Hiner. He was telling us all about sort of the work that he's doing when it comes down to not just his experience as a Navy SEAL, but the training that he's doing, which is very exciting. All right, so Ed, I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of, what makes you great. So let's talk a little bit about your Sealpreneurship training. Why are you, what do you think it takes to move and to teach these types of kids, to coach them, to lead them?
Well, that is a learning in process for me. I'm used to rigid, paying attention, more discipline. Everybody's focused on what's going on. So I've been learning a lot. I actually brought in one of my another SEAL that's a professional teacher, not only in high school, but he teaches Navy SEALs still for like 12 years how to become an instructor. So he's kind of my mentor on that side. But obviously it takes, you got to have the passion for it, because it's not like these kids are all engaged in the beginning. You have to engage with them. You got to spark their curiosity just enough that they realize this is something it can help them.
Yeah.
And I think I actually teach them how to be a good student too, how to give feedback to me and how to, kind of do that cause and effect relationship with me in the classroom. Like if the kid's sitting there sleeping, I become a worse instructor.
Right.
But if he's engaged, I become better. So,
right.
To teach these kids, you just got to care about them. You got to care about what you're doing. You got to get them some curiosity. So this is how it helps your life, and this is how it's relevant to you.
Yeah.
It has to be relevant to the kid.
How young are the kids that you work with?
The youngest is like 15. They're in high school, so ninth grade through seniors.
Yeah.
And we've had, it was amazing. The first course we did, a 2-week summer camp on campus before the COVID. It was amazing, the inspiration that we got from the letters the kids wrote us. So that actually changed it reinforced the fact they gave me an after action review that this program works. The kids are excited. The school was excited. The superintendent of the school was excited. So it's kind of grown from there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Can you think of any specific sort of kids or someone that you've worked with that, like, there's the hero story that you met this kid and you taught them the stuff that you gave them the Ed Hiner special, and that sounded awful, but you gave them like the goods, like you shared your secrets and your insights, and you actually saw it manifest in this kid.
Well, we did. This summer it'll be 2 years when we started, but we have seen several of them graduate, go to college, and come back and kind of vouch for the program, not graduate from college, but graduate high school, go to college, and come back to the academy, the Foster Academy, and praise it. And come into the classroom and say, listen, telling the younger students, like, don't waste your time. Do what he says.
Amazing.
And do these courses. And I've also had on the exact opposite scale too. We had a student that he was getting ready to start the course. He was going to graduate from high school. I met him and I looked at him. I knew he's from Iraq. And I said, asked him where he's from. He said, Fallujah. Right. Long story short, he was going to be one of our first students, but his father decided to come back in the picture, take him out of Foster Academy, and they should rob houses together. So his life went in a bad direction, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have an opportunity to get with him.
Yeah. So on that note, how important is role modeling? I mean, if we're going to send any great leaders off into this world, I mean, we all have a responsibility as parents, as leaders, as mentors, as, bosses, as managers. We got youth coming into this world. I mean, how seriously should we take that role? How seriously do you think we should look at this relationship of us being a role model versus just being an employer or being a leader or whatnot? Like, do we have that responsibility?
I think we do. I think me as a human being, and that's part of my makeup, is that I feel a sense of stewardship for society personally, and I always have been. I guess maybe that's why I was a SEAL, but I feel that it is responsibility. A lot of people overlook the fact that they're not. Well, that's not my responsibility. Well, it is our responsibility, and that is just a part of, I think, of being a human being, and it makes you a better human being is to take that role as a person. Nobody hands it to you. You just got to take it, and go for it. Right. And I think that's a big part of our character and ethos.
Amazing. Well, you represent the hat. Like, obviously, as a podcast guest, you get one of these hats coming in. So, making humans better humans, you rep it well, and we're going to make sure you wear that and take lots of photos.
So we use that term, better humans, too.
Yeah. So amazing. Amazing.
Steal your term.
Hey, we could share it. How's that?
Okay.
All right. Hey, we're in this together. This is teamwork, right? You'll take the West Coast. I'll take the East Coast.
Deal.
All right, cool. All right, so let me ask you, what makes a great leader today? We've got leaders in organizations, we've got leaders like in communities. What are some key personality traits or competencies that leaders need to demonstrate today?
Well, overarching, I think, one, it's focus on character. I know this is overlooked. A lot of people want to be, decisive and all these adjectives, but character, ethos itself is at the underbelly of it all. That's the engine that drives it. And I mean, obviously, there's certain traits I believe in very strongly, and practicing humility. Humility opens you up to learn and to grow in different ways where arrogance shuts you off from. Right. And that ethos and that character understands that. Look, I got a simple principle. I used to teach it to business people, and I'll teach it to the kids. If you want to learn how to lead and how to make decisions as a leader, it's the MOM model. MOM. Okay. Mission, others, me. If you focus on the mission, the others, the people around you, and then yourself, then 75% of the time you're doing the right thing, probably.
Super cool. I love these acronyms. MOM, GUTS. What does GUTS stand for again?
GUTS is greatness under tremendous stress.
That is, I mean, you couldn't have nailed a better acronym and title for what we need to develop in today's world, considering we're living in 2021 right now, right? So I was going to ask, so leadership traits, character. So I love the fact that you said that, which is at the end of the day, we all drive to be decisive or, assertive or direct, but at the end of the day, it's the underlying character. So, what can we do to ensure that, like, let's say as a parent, I got kids and I'm sort of bringing these kids up into the world, and it's not as severe as sort of the foster situation or broken homes. But I want a role model. I want to be a great leader. I want to make sure that, like, I'm developing good characters, right? What should be some things I should be focusing on?
Well, one, I think it's important. I'm a big write it down guy.
Okay.
I think if it's not written down, it doesn't count, right? So I think, all of us, one of the things we do with the kids, and we do it near the end, is that we make them write their personal ethos statement.
Cool.
Then we go through exercises like, what are the traits of someone you admire? And we put the traits of someone they admire on the board, the traits they don't like in someone. And they all come out to be about the same, right?
Right.
Honesty, decency, empathy, all these things that come out. And then now you take those good words, those ones you like and respect in people, and that's how you start to write down your own ethos. For the school, for that high school, the first one I worked with, I got in and spent about 9 months creating their school ethos for them, just like we did in the SEAL teams. Our SEAL teams is run by an ethos, a 440-word document that, we judge each other by.
Right.
So much ambiguity out there in the world, and, so much confusion in combat and overseas and things that you can't give all specific orders and directions. You have to have a living principle that you follow and you see in your mind's eye. And that's what that character is. So I'd say as a parent, write it down.
Right.
Start exploring, because you get confused. It's a little harder than you think sometimes to write down.
Are you able to, do you know what yours? Are you able to share yours? Your ethos?
Well, it would take me a long time to read it off, but
but just the top line of it?
Well, I'm here to serve. I'm a steward.
Right. Very cool. Do you know anything about servant leadership?
Well, I've been through servant leadership. I don't know if you know Ken Blanchard.
Of course. Blanchard Group. Didn't you do work with the Blanchard? Well, don't you
know him?
Yeah.
I have a master's in executive leadership, and
Okay.
he sponsored the program. Ken and I have done a lot of stuff together. I'm actually trying to work with him right now on this stuff.
Cool.
On the guts for business people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe in servant leadership, but I call it steward leadership, because stewards have to make hard decisions sometimes. And I think, to me, that's a little clearer in my mind's eye, because as a leader, you do have to make hard calls, and you don't have to be the good guy all the time. So I think a steward, a protector of your people and the mission is, to me, that's more clear.
I said this the other day on a post that I did, which is leadership is about making the decisions no one else wants to make, by making the calls that that other people are having difficulty doing, by driving the things by driving first when no one else will. I mean, and that's a little bit about stewardship. So I love that. Okay, one more question before we're going to jump onto the final section. But what do you think we're facing? What challenges do you think we're facing as leaders today that we need to be considerate of? And whether we are leading youth or whether we're leading a team in an organization, what is the challenge that we are up against as leaders moving forward in the next couple of years?
Well, I think we call it the world of VUCA, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this. The acronym is another one. In the military, is how we plan stuff: is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. VUCA means the world's chaotic. Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses, especially with this COVID world and how it's going to morph, the business is going to morph into something completely different. People aren't going into offices. People are doing Zooms. People, the industries that were big now aren't big, and technology changes overnight, and the confusion and that understanding that VUCA is going to be the challenge for them. And how do you lead during times of chaos? And how do you lead and push forward when, it just seems like there's no solution to a lot of problems? And I think the type of leadership I teach is, I think you can do that, because you got to be offensive. Right.
You do. I think this is the day we need to be offensive. Awesome. So on that note, we're going to take a quick little break. We're going to hear from our sponsor before we get into the final section. Okay, just before we jump into the next segment, we're going to take a quick little audio break, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, the Better Human program. The Better Human program is a 10-week program that equips you with the tools to achieve success in every interaction with other humans. Learn assertiveness, effective communication, interpersonal skills, and take control of your life with the Better Human program. Check out the link below for all the description information. All right, welcome back. Ed, once again, we are in the final section. This is called the Better Human section, and we just talk about Better Human. You use that term a lot, and this is what the podcast is about. This is what the work is about. This is what you stand for. This is what I stand for, and it is all about making humans better humans. So I want to start with our first, and it's a big question, as we were just discussing on the break, which is, what does the word better human mean to you, and how do we achieve this? How do I become a better human? And not that there's a right or wrong answer for it, but listening to a guy like you and with your experience and the work you're doing, I mean, I couldn't think of asking this question to a better person, better human.
Well, we spoke a little bit about it, but I'm a firm believer that the character development, if you will, and focus, and kind of, to me, it's a form of curiosity, right? If you are curious about character, curious about your own character, curious about what you can do to once again, serve and be a steward of the world. And I know a lot of people talk about that. They just don't practice it. And it's important to practice it and really come to grips with it. It's just better for society, better for your leadership, better for companies, better for happiness. I think it's critical to do that.
Yeah. Do you think you think people are lazy or selfish when they don't do things like that?
It's a lot of selfishness. I mean, people are naturally, we all are, right? We all are just naturally selfish human beings, but you have to actively fight against that. And I have one term I used in that. I tell people that when they're leading, they're doing whatever. And we talk to the kids about this. And I used to, when you go into combat, you have rules of engagement that you read. And rules of engagement are very, they're fuzzy in real world, but not on paper.
Yeah.
And my advice or my guidance, it was to every SEAL and everyone that worked for me. I said, look, and this is a good rule of thumb for life, is never intentionally harm someone unless you have to. And that means inside or out. And if you can live by that and start to incorporate that in your life, it'll do a lot of things for you, especially in this world where online bullying and just this awful rhetoric is flying out. People won't control themselves, which I call courageous restraint. If you can have a little bit of that, you'll make the world a lot better place.
Oh, man, you've got it all. You should write a book. You're like, I did too. Right, and start a program. All right, cool. So let's say someone wants to pursue a career of leadership. Let's say someone wants to get into to move down the road of Navy SEALs. What advice would you give them?
Don't do it. I'm gonna tell you this. And Navy SEAL is it's not much as a career as it's a way of life.
Yeah.
If you have to be 100% in it. You can't be 98 or 99. Pin yourself down. You have no other options. It's either forward or that's it.
Right.
There's a lot of people that if you're not committed to it 100%, you won't do it. And we live by these basic principles as a SEAL in everything we do. We become a very obsessive and impulsive, crazy, but it's in the fight triangle, in any fight you fight, because like on the World of VUCA, the unknown are everywhere.
Right.
Is I'd say to anyone, anything they're going to endeavor and what they're going to do is you hit it with three things. And the triangle's surprise, speed, and violence of action. And interpret that as initiative, speed, and overwhelming action. So those three principles you put into anything you want to accomplish, immerse yourself in it and get after it.
Wow.
You get after it.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. I'm going to have to follow up in the Coles notes of this afterwards and be like, dude, walk me through this again and just, tell me and draw it for me. I mean, is this the kind of stuff that you put in your book, by the way?
Oh yeah, definitely. This, I go through a whole chapter in this type of attacking a problem and being on the offense, not the defense, being the cause of the effect, not the effect that was caused. Because, we live in a world of just chaos, even in today's world, but SEAL world, everything's crazy. You got to be on the offense and you got to be moving.
Yeah.
And you got to be.
Here's an interesting question. I don't know this, but do SEALs suffer with anxiety?
Not really, no.
Right.
Well, funny, but I talk about this in the book as well, because, because when I wrote Guts, it was really going back to, because I'd had some issues about 4 years ago where I was just really having a hard time adjusting to leaving the SEAL team, to be honest with you. It was really hard. It's like giving up your best friend. Combat and the excitement and all those things are addictive. We had to, I call it the chassis. You got four parts. You got your physical fitness, the physical world, like nature, sleeping, and what you eat. And then the engine that drives that chassis, if you will, is the mind. So you got to work on all those components. And I looked back at what I used to make me happy as a SEAL, sleeping outside for 5 or 6 weeks in the rain and snow and all that. But you're in the world, you're in the physical world, use your body.
How do you continue to learn and stay on top of your game?
Well, it's funny, as we curious. I just started reading a book called Curious, because I think you got to be curious about things. And there's so much stuff out there to know and learn and stuff and to constantly improve where you're at from this point. And it's always improvement, right? And I think it starts with curiosity. And we teach the kids, if you're just curious enough to get into something, then that's where that snowball rolls, and it's not an effort.
What is the 1-2 line piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with? It could be advice for future, it could be lessons lived, lessons learned, it could be just a thought that people need to think about. So what do you want to leave? What's that advice you want to leave the audience with?
build your resume for heaven
Mm.
and leave a legacy behind, because legacy gives you courage past death. And
Wow. Wow. That was powerful. Man, we're going to have to do part 2 to this. All right. Listen, today, Ed, I mean, this was awesome. It almost seems like we don't have enough time. There's so much more to pull out of you. And definitely, if we could get you back for part 2 and a follow-up, we absolutely will. When's your book coming out, by the way? When's the release of the book? April.
It's
Okay.
on Amazon right now for pre-sale.
Okay, cool. So maybe what we'll do closer to around spring, we'll do another podcast. We could do a little bit of a promo for that. But for the audience today, where could they get in touch with you? Where could they learn about the Sealpreneurship training and coaching and everything that you offer? How can we get in touch? Where do we find you?
EdHiner.com, and is Sealpreneurship they're on iTunes, all over the place. They're podcasts, but just go to EdHiner.com. My other company, My PhD and Me, will be the website, but it's Asymmetrical Evolution. We're just putting that all together right now because the snowball's been getting bigger and bigger. But go to EdHiner.com and you'll
Find everything there. Awesome. So we'll make sure this is all in the footnotes of the show, and obviously as we start to post this out over the different platforms, we'll make sure that you are linked, and obviously your contact info is there. Ed, thank you so much for being here. Once again, thank you so much for your service and your commitment to not just the leadership and the youth, but to the country. Because without guys like you, I don't know if we'd be living in the world that we do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people around the world, if you liked today's episode, which I hope you did, don't forget to like that. Click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share, and don't forget to comment. And we will see you next time. Hey, I'm Greg Witz. Thanks so much for coming and checking out the video. If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. So I'd highly suggest that you click this video over here. And don't forget to subscribe and share.